Woke up at dawn with the pelicans in flight. Coffee brewing strong by dawn's early light. Waves whisper secrets to my open heart. The life around this water gets me off to a great start. Parrots wild, squawking loud in the old palm tree. Dolphin smiles, brighter than the Texas sun on me. We chase simple dreams, nothing fancy or grand, just honest days in this promised land. God gives rainbow horizons to those in this happy lane. Diamonds dancing on the waves, back sparkling again. Honest living, a pursuit of peace, family ties and the happiness we seek. Love, forgotten country running deep in our veins. Through the storms and the trials we break those chains. Good living brings the blessings we see. The rainbow horizons calling to me. Living each moment, giving truth from the heart. No deceptions woven, no false starts. It goes like a front porch swaying in the ocean breeze. Watching the sunset fade away with pink and blue ease. Teach the young ones right from wrong with care. Hold them close when the world's unfair. In this Gulf Coast life we find our way, building memories that never stray. Oh, rainbow horizons after the rain. Diamonds dancing on the waves back again. Honest living in pursuit of peace. Family ties and the happiness we seek. Love, forgotten country running deep in our veins. Through the storms and the trials we break those chains. Good living brings the blessings we see. Rainbow horizons calling to me. When the night falls quiet and the stars shine bright, I thank the Lord for this humble light, for the flag that waves and the grace from above, filling our hearts with endless love. No riches compared to the peace we found in the tides we ride, and the love all around. No rainbow horizons after the rain. Diamonds dancing on the waves back again. Honest living in pursuit of peace. Family ties and the happiness we seek. Love, forgotten country running deep in our veins. Through the storms and the trials we break those chains. Good living brings the blessings we see. Rainbow horizons forever free. Your rainbow horizons calling to me.
Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well today. If you can hear me, put a 1. My music
Woke up at
continues.
dawn with the pelicans in flight. Coffee brewing
I
strong.
mean, it's a
by
nice
dawn's
little
early
song. You
light.
know what I mean?
Waves whisper secrets to my open heart.
All right.
Life around this water gets me off to a great start. Parrots wild, squawking loud.
Stop. Sorry about that. I hope you guys are doing so good today. If you're on the Texas Gulf Coast, it is gorgeous outside. Beautiful. All right. Okay. So, weird topic, right? Hey, Tennessee volunteer girl, how are you? Hi, my friend. I'm so good to see. Happy to see you. Hound lover. Some of us take KRATOM from reputable, inspected sources in a responsible manner. Responsible. That's the word of the day, right? It is a cousin to coffee, no more addictive than. Yeah, no, I would agree with you about the issue with 7-OH. 7-OH is the big culprit, right? There's a couple of other ingredients that can be a huge culprit to addiction, acting directly on the opiate receptors. And that becomes the terrible source of these awful problems that we're now seeing in the emergency rooms and funeral homes. So, all right. Yeah. So KRATOM is really interesting. It didn't really, hey, Amazingly True. Good to see you. Hey, Jennifer Lawton, beautiful day in Ohio. I love Ohio. When I lived in West Virginia, we used to go to Ohio all the time. Hey, Vicki Carpenter, good to see you. I know it's Ohio. I'm playing. All right. So, moving to Coshocton. Very cool. Okay. So, KRATOM. Why are we talking about KRATOM? Well, we've got one user in here who, is acknowledging it is in fact a plant. To be specifically, it's the leaf of the plant that has psychoactive effects, and it has become all the rage since all of the big pill mills that were in the country. When was that? Was that back like was that in the 90s? I think that was in the 90s, where the internet got big. People were actually now able to access it pretty regularly. And the drug companies, some of the doctors, they figured out that they could bypass prescribing laws on like scheduled drugs, that they could bypass scheduling laws by being in one state and prescribing in another state. And the net effect of that was that we had all these pill mills pop up all over the place. Florida was a huge hub. There were a lot in Louisiana. Texas had a few. California, so many in California. But people all over the country were getting these prescriptions, 180 Percocets in a month. Like, that is an enormous amount of drug, right? But they were getting these prescriptions. I'll tell you something else they were doing at the time that was so dangerous. They were given a high percentage, high milligrams per month of opiates, but they were also giving them equally high benzodiazepine or muscle relaxer at the same time. So we were seeing a lot of deaths that were interaction problems, right? Like an opiate with a benzodiazepine, or an opiate with a muscle relaxer. That your family doctor will not even prescribe that to you now. And that used to be the normal prescription. They won't even do that anymore. Even if you're like in the office with them and they can see that your back is broken, they're not going to give you those two things together. So we had this period of time, perhaps it was around 10 years, 7 years. I don't even know how long it was. I know there was at least 5 years, because I was connected to an emergency room work at the time. And so I saw a lot of these poor people that died, that were getting these pills from these pill mills. And then they would do a phone appointment, and then the doctor would send the prescription over to a different state where the actual pharmacy, but it turned out they were just warehouses where the actual pharmacy was. And then they would pack up the enormous amount of drugs and then ship it to you by United States Postal Office. So we just had a nation of people that started in pain. Like, I believe the majority of them were legitimate pain patients. And then because of the irresponsible prescribing, they ended up with a horrible addiction, and the rest was history. By the time that the DEA and the reputable doctors, by the time they sort of caught up with what was happening, like, how can we have all these addicted people that don't have family doctors? Like, how is this possible? By the time that all that caught up to them, it was a real problem to shut the pill mills down, to get rid of the doctors that were over prescribing. And one of the, probably the biggest casualty were these good people who got caught up in this really, really bad situation. So you had a lot of people that developed terrible addictions to opiates who either went to street drugs, heroin, and later fentanyl, but heroin was the big one. They either moved over into a heroin addiction, or they tried to get clean. And a lot of those people ended their lives because they were sick and they couldn't deal with the addiction. KRATOM became something that a lot of the bulletin boards were telling people about, that you can order this tea from, like the Asia, China, the Philippines, wherever, that you could order this tea, and if it didn't get confiscated coming into the country by customs, then it would help you get through your withdrawals, right? Because it stops opiate withdrawals. Well, we're going to have a big argument about whether it's an opiate, Hound Lover. Here's what I know. I'm not big on labels and semantics, but I do understand what the opiate receptors are. And a drug that fills that opiate receptor is going to give the symptoms of an opiate, and it's going to create the same type of withdrawal syndrome. So it is. So anyway, so KRATOM was originally put out there to people that were trying to deal with a bad addiction to opiates that they were trying to live without, right? And that was sort of the beginning of the KRATOM information here in the United States. And I remember the first time that I saw it being sold on Amazon, I was like, wow, that's strange that they're selling it on Amazon. Like I said, customs used to confiscate it at the border. They wouldn't let it ship in. Anyway, now it gets sold at gas stations. All right. Sold at gas stations. There's only maybe 4 states where it's outlawed. Indiana, I don't think you can get it in Ohio, Louisiana, and I think Arkansas. So I think those are the 4. There are many other states where they have begun to regulate KRATOM, but the majority of the states currently, it's just the Wild West. You can get whatever buy whatever you want. There's plenty of places where KRATOM is unregulated. You can buy whatever you want, but you can't get marijuana, right? And not even medicinal marijuana. So it is a substance that is currently in between the cracks. And make no mistake about it, it is a highly psychoactive substance. And it is, in fact, addictive. And there is, in fact, a withdrawal syndrome that is opiate, right? Now, in I have seen people come into the ER who are on the nod. And, you know, when you see someone who's on the nod, you say they're obviously on some sort of opiate, right? That's the being on the nod is not falling asleep. It's an altered state of consciousness where you see really curious things like somebody's just talking like this. Okay, maybe reading a sentence, just talking, and then they go to sleep, and then you're sitting there going, excuse me, what's happening? And then they suddenly wake back up and continue right where they left off. Now, that may not seem like much of a big deal, but for a psychologist or a neurologist and someone who understands stream of consciousness neurologically, that's very weird. It's very weird to be able to have a thought in your active consciousness, right? And then you sort of check out, go to sleep, but then when you wake up, you're still holding that same idea in your active awareness. Weird. And you don't get that phenomenon with benzodiazepines. You don't get that when someone's like really, really drunk and fallen asleep. It is very specific to opioid intoxication. Okay. So if you see someone, I don't care who they are, if you see someone and they're talking just like this and they're continuing to tell you and kind of shake their head and kind of, you know, try to like think down. And while they're talking to you, they start talking about going to the Astros game. And when we were there, we were able to get hot dogs, and it was such a great game. And you're like, what did I just watch? How is that humanly possible that you can have a thought and then you fall asleep and then you wake up and you continue right like you never fell asleep? And here's the other thing. These people that are on the nod, they don't know that they're going to sleep. They will rage at you. Why are you telling me that I'm falling asleep? I'm not falling asleep. Look at me. You can see me right here. I'm perfectly fine. I'm not falling. You shouldn't be telling me I'm falling asleep. I'm not falling asleep. I'm right here. Look at my eyes. Look at my eyes. I'm perfectly normal. It's very scary if you don't really understand what it is that you're seeing. So that is opiates. It's not anything else. You don't get that stream of consciousness phenomenon. You don't get it with alcohol intoxication. You don't get it with benzodiazepines. You just don't. You don't. Somebody said one night about what's the narcolepsy. I asked one of my neurologist friends, in narcolepsy, do you have the stream of consciousness phenomenon? Do people with narcolepsy, do they go on the nod and come back like someone on opiates? I said, no. They may go to sleep, but then when they wake up, they're sort of reset for the next thing. So the question then becomes, if you're seeing someone who's doing that and they're telling you, I can pass my drug test, I'm not high, I'm not using drugs, is it possible that they're using KRATOM? Because look, there's an article right now on the internet today that I think the title of it is the title of this live. KRATOM, South Carolina's gas station heroin. And if you are buying KRATOM at the gas station or Amazon or even at the health food store, because it is an herb, right? The truth is that KRATOM is an herb that comes from like the South Pacific, I think. isn't it the South Pacific, Southeast Asia. And there are several active compounds within it. The 7-OH is the main culprit for addiction, intoxication, and withdrawal. And here's the problem. The 7-OH is something that is being targeted in the concentrated forms of kratom. There, if you see an elixir, they're packing in 300 times the amount of 7-OH that you would get if you were just taking a kratom leaf and chewing the leaf. So it's not enough to just say, is it coming from a reputable source? You've really got to kind of get into the bushes and say, okay, wait a minute. Have you manipulated this to be a concentrated form? Or is this just like a light tea, for example, that is not usually concentrated? And again, the people in Southeast Asia, they're not sitting around on the nod all day long. They're not. But they're picking the leaf and chewing it. So it's in its most natural state, right? Same thing went on with marijuana. What do they call it? Dirt weed, right? People used to grow their own marijuana, and you could grow your own marijuana, a couple plants out hidden among the azaleas, and nobody would ever know, that you were growing it. And you could smoke the whole joint and you'd be relaxed. Maybe you'd have a little bit of a buzz, but you were not baked, right? Let me tell y'all something. Colorado is selling a marijuana cigarette called Willie's Delight. And it is Willie Nelson's company, okay? Of course, Willie Nelson has a THC company, right? No, he's got it all. He's got gummies. He's got cigarette joints. He's got skin cream. Like, he's got everything. But they sell in the gas stations in Colorado, they sell a little package of marijuana joints, and it's called Willie's Select. And each joint is 100 milligrams of THC. You are not going to sit down by yourself and smoke an entire joint. You're going to be, you're gone. I mean, it is, that actually is probably the most concentrated product that I've heard of. And it's horribly dangerous. It's terribly dangerous. I don't use THC at all, not even gummies or anything like that. If I were to sit down and, let's say, smoke one of these Willie Select joints, I'd be in the emergency room. I would be having hallucinations. My dopamine would be wrecked. I mean, I'd be gone, okay? Not like wrapping a joint, from the plants in your garden, skunk weed, yeah. Not your little dirt weed joint, and you're like, oh, I think I'll relax and watch a movie and have a couple of puffs off my little joint here. This stuff is horrible. Big drug. So the difference between dirt weed and medicinal level weed is night and day. The medicinal level weed is drugs. It's drugs. It's the real deal. Something you grow out in your own garden, and no, it's just not. And I will say this too. Here's another problem seen in the emergency rooms. It used to be that you could go buy a bag of marijuana, and it was a bag of marijuana. And it wasn't psychopaths that were selling it and growing it and selling it. It's just regular people trying to make a little money, right? So it wasn't dangerous. In today's world, if I was going to use THC, you could not make me buy it off the street. Why is that? Well, because these types of drugs are easily, readily available everywhere now. Even in a state where it's not legal, it's still easy to get, Delta 8 being an example. But people that, drug dealers that are trying to make a living, you know, they may add a little something extra to your bag of marijuana so that you're like, wow, this is some really good marijuana. I'm so relaxed. And then you find out it's opiate that they've added to it to give you that special little oomph, right? I hear a lot of people tell me they got some weed and it was something was different about it and it scared them, and so they didn't smoke any more of it. I'm like, you should be scared because people are adding crap to it, right? In today's world, I would go to a place where it was legal. There's a lot of states now where it's legal. I'd go and I would be a responsible user and I would get what I wanted from an actual retail establishment where, you know that what you're getting is safe. It's different than it was when I was, in high school, but I wouldn't buy it off the street now in today's world. No way. Yeah, cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. Exactly, B. Frank. That's another huge problem, dehydration and stuff. So this KRATOM situation, and I can't stress enough, there are multiple substances within the KRATOM that are psychoactive, that act upon the opiate receptors in the brain. If you get KRATOM in its natural form, if you get KRATOM usually as a tea, or they even have KRATOM drinks, I would be comfortable drinking one of the KRATOM drinks. You're not going to run into this addiction intoxication problem. It's with the elixirs, some of the gummies, some of the powders where they've really, really built up the 7-OH concentration, you're going to run into some trouble. And it is in fact true that I have seen many people, and this is going to surprise Hound Lover, I have seen many people using KRATOM who tested and there was not any other opiate in their system, and yet they're sitting right there on the bed in the ER on the nod. Well, completely on the nod from 7-OH. Now that's very high doses. And along with the high doses of the KRATOM, something that would be enough that would create opiate intoxication, because that's what it is. If your opiate receptors are filled, you're in opiate intoxication because the opiate receptors are full. Okay. So if you take enough of the KRATOM to get into intoxication, you've got some other problems and issues too that could be devastating. Seizure becomes a huge problem with high doses of KRATOM. Okay? Seizure can be very, very dangerous. So like I said, traditionally people will chew these leaves or take the natural leaves and put them in hot water, put some honey and, make like a little tea. Then when they realized that they could use this substance to help with opiate withdrawal, to stop the withdrawal syndrome, they began to make it into powders and little capsules. The extracts, I would be very careful of the extracts, but the low dose products of KRATOM, they're really like Hound Lover said, they're really more like a stimulant. It affects you a bit more like coffee would affect you, right? Because the 7-OH and other substances are not big enough to fill a lot of those opiate receptors. But if you are taking a highly concentrated elixir, or you're just taking, I mean, I talked to somebody one time that would take 40 capsules. Now, ask me if they were vomiting. Yeah, they were vomiting, diarrhea, seizure. Like this guy was sick. But because of the direct effect on the opiate receptors, he was in opiate addiction. He couldn't help himself. He was hungry for that euphoria. The only thing that would make his sickness go away was more of the KRATOM. Listen, here's how bad it is, y'all. They're using the like methadone and Subutex, Suboxone. They're using that to help people get off of KRATOM. Very scary. Very scary stuff. This is not just because it's being sold in your local gas station, just because it's not scheduled yet, it's going to be. Mark my words. You better start buying now if you got to have it, because it's coming. It will one day be scheduled because of the dangerousness and the addiction issues that are related to it. But in low doses, it's more like coffee. It's more like a stimulant. Higher doses, the person you're looking at looks like they're on some kind of opiate. And then you test them and they're not testing, they're not hitting morphine, heroin, nothing. Okay, so it's the KRATOM. So when you see somebody taking KRATOM to a level that they're on the nod, they are actually toxic. They're actually in an opioid toxidrome situation, which is it's highly dangerous, right? They're sick. There's vomiting, nausea. They even get constipation when they're taking high doses of KRATOM. Itching is so prevalent with KRATOM intoxication or with opiate intoxication. You see this? Constant, right? Constant. Scratching their back. Scratch. Opiates or KRATOM. It's notorious, okay? And if you're able to ingest enough KRATOM product, then confusion, hallucinations, loss of consciousness, psychosis, it's real. And then here's the coup de grace: trouble breathing, asthma. If you know, you know. Okay. So the national data is absolutely finding people whose death certificates clearly state KRATOM intoxication, KRATOM overdose. We're absolutely getting those KRATOM deaths, okay? And the more people that pick up on what this stuff is and they begin to use it as a way of self-medicating or as part of just like their normal herbal supplemental healthy lifestyle choices, the more addiction we're going to see, the more overdose we're going to see, the more withdrawal that we're going to see. Now, there are right now today, according to the latest statistics that we have, which are from 2023, so several years old, there are about 1.7 million users of KRATOM in the United States. And do you want to know what one of the biggest groups is? One of the biggest groups is middle school kids. Yeah. Your middle schooler has figured out that they can get high. They can get super relaxed and sit in class all day. And so they're eating the gummies or they're drinking the teas. All right. So this is a problem coming. The normal age that you see is between 26 and 49, but that middle school group, they have found the stuff and they like it. And that's the reason that I said it's going to all come to an end. It's going to end up getting scheduled. Like, I'm certain of it, right? They already tried once before. I think it was 2016 or something. I think maybe it was 2019. Several years ago, they did try to make a federal law to outlaw it, and that would have stopped it from being imported, right? And it didn't pass, and I don't remember the whole ins and outs of why it didn't. But males are the users primarily, although there's plenty of females. Of those using KRATOM, they have polysubstance use. So if you're using KRATOM, you're probably also drinking a lot, using marijuana. Here's a real problem. Many of the people that are using KRATOM have depression. And when you mix antidepressants with the 7-OH, that can be deadly. That can kill you. So if you're depressed and somebody says, oh, you ought to try this KRATOM, it's going to make you feel so much better. Now you got a problem. You're taking an antidepressant and then you're drinking the 7-OH. Now you're actually in danger and you have no idea that it's dangerous. Okay. So, let's see the next thing I wanted to point out. CDC Poison Control Center, 2015 to 2025, they had 233 KRATOM associated deaths, where 184 of those deaths, it was multiple substances. So combining the KRATOM with antidepressants, combining KRATOM with benzodiazepines or even alcohol is more deadly than just having it on its own, right? If opiates were added, then the rate of death goes up 62% in terms, for fatalities. And opiates or past opiate users are a large percentage of those that use KRATOM. That they find KRATOM because they're trying to manage withdrawal. When you go through withdrawal from opiate, you get very sick. They call it dope sick. You're vomiting, diarrhea. It's a very unpleasant week in your life, okay? And then you have about a year of protracted withdrawal where you just have no energy and never-ending depression. It's a high price to pay to have your beloved opiates on board, okay? So you've got a lot of people that start using KRATOM as a way to get off of the opiates, but because it's very difficult to get clean from opiates, they'll jump back on them and they're still using the KRATOM. And that's where so many fatalities occur. So many people using KRATOM, they're actually either currently trying to manage the demands of opiate addiction, or they're past opiate users and they're using KRATOM as a way to stay sober. All right, so that's a big part of the group that's using it. The stronger, I've already talked about the stronger extracts, the 7-OH being the primary culprit. That is what is so dangerous in the high dosing. So if you're going to try to use KRATOM, you have to find a way to find a product where they're actually giving some kind of dosing information. And because it's completely unregulated, there's no dosing. These products don't tell you 1 teaspoon every 8 hours, 1 capsule, only 4 capsules in 24 hours. They don't tell you anything. They just say, here it is. Use at your own peril. So it's very dangerous when you start concentrating the psychoactive ingredients. Very easy to overdose on something that you're not being given any guidance as to what the proper dosing would be, right? All right. Excuse me. So in Houston, there was this lady. She had 7 years of using Percocet, and she did get caught up in the whole pill mill type of problem. And she got pregnant. And so she's using the KRATOM throughout her pregnancy daily. She's using it daily throughout her pregnancy. The husband came into the emergency room and told the nurses, told the doctors, she's been using this product that, she says keeps her from like feeling opiate withdrawal, and it stops her from feeling like cravings for the opiate and that kind of thing. And so he came clean and said she's using this herbal treatment, safe, no kind of trouble. Well, she's been using it every day throughout her pregnancy. Okay, this is a true story. It's real. So it was a little boy that was born, and within maybe 24 hours, maybe, because they were, was it 24? Let me think a minute. Maybe it was a little longer. Maybe a little bit longer than 24 hours, because they were getting ready to leave the hospital. So let's just say, for argument's sake, 36 hours, okay, day and a half. About a day and a half, there's this perfect little baby boy born. And within about a day and a half, 24 hours to 36 hours after the birth, family's getting ready to go home. The baby begins to be like so agitated that it's like scraping its skin. And it's just crying and crying. Now, this was previously a baby that was very serene, very, very healthy, no problems. And then over the course of several hours, they actually take the baby out of the mother's room, take it into NICU. I mean, this baby was in distress, screaming. The screams, the screaming was just like this, like a cat screaming, like this high-pitched, intense, guttural noise. It was incredible. It was just, everybody was in shock. Everybody's like, what is happening to this baby? Did we accidentally give them some medication? Was there something in the like the sugar mixture? Like, what's wrong with this baby? And then the sneezing started. Newborn babies don't sneeze. You know what I mean? I mean, they will, but it's not like sneeze, sneeze, sneeze. Sneezing started. Like that. Tremors, jitters. this baby, and they did the whole drug screening. They looked for hydrocodone, they looked for methadone, they looked for all of it. Nothing was showing. And yet the doctors and the nurses were looking at this baby and they were going, this baby is in opiate withdrawal. That is what's happening to this baby. And it wasn't showing up on any of the blood tests. So finally, they used a morphine infusion, and it was a guess. And the nurses were very frightened. They were like, are we sure we want to give a newborn baby morphine? Like, what are we doing? And because the doctors were looking at this little baby and they were like, we know what we're looking at. This is classic addiction for a newborn baby. Like, we know what we're seeing. We know what we're hearing. We know that sound that they make. Like, we know what we're looking at. And I don't know why it's not showing up on drug tests. And I don't care, because we have to get this baby comfortable. Like something is horrible here. And so finally they tried the morphine infusion. After a few drips, guess what happened to the baby? The baby was in the hospital for 3 weeks being weaned with morphine. So whether we want to call KRATOM an opiate or not, I think that's a game of semantics. If a substance is acting directly upon those opiate receptors, it will create an opiate withdrawal syndrome. Now, even once you wean these babies off of these opiates, okay, once you get their bodies detoxed and they get the crap out of them, and all that, those kids, they suffer. That craving for a drug that they can't even name, it's always there for them. They're in constant distress. They find it very, very difficult to quiet and soothe. You get a lot of developmental delay diagnoses in babies that are born with an opiate addiction. There are many of those kids that are later identified low intellectual functioning. You get a high number of autism diagnoses for children that were born addicted to opiates. This is not a one and done. You don't get to be a pregnant mother staying high on opiates throughout your pregnancy and say, oh, well, my baby will go through withdrawal for 1 week and then they'll be normal. No, they won't. Their brains are not like mine and yours. Even if I give myself a horrible heroin addiction, horrible, and I stay addicted to heroin for 5 years, and then I get clean, my brain is still different than that baby who developed around an opiate being ever constant. Those kids never recover. There's no safe high when you're pregnant. It's just not there. The child will pay the price. You're safer to come clean with your doctor in pregnancy and say, look, I've been doing this really stupid thing. I thought KRATOM was safe. I thought it would be okay for me to use it. I thought it would be okay. Now I know that it's not. Is there anything that we can do to help the baby? Yes, you can immediately start titrating down. You reduce what the mom is taking slowly, And then the baby slowly adjusts to that lower dose so that when they're finally born, and you don't let them fall over into full-blown withdrawals like this baby in Houston. You trigger a syndrome when you let them go into complete abstinence. That is the worst case outcome if somebody goes cold turkey. So we never want to go cold turkey. We want to train the body to be happy with fewer dosing, smaller dosing of that substance. So you never go cold turkey. People, don't go cold turkey. Don't do it. Don't do it. No. It makes it's a whole different ball game. Very slow reduction of dose over time so that you don't damage your brain. Okay. And then you can get off of it and live a perfectly normal life. But it's got to be slow. It's got to be intentional. It has to be managed by a doctor of addiction because they understand what's happening in the brain and the body. Okay. But look, I cannot imagine the shock and the horror of you have a false sense of security that KRATOM is safe. And so instead of using oxycodone, Percocets, hydrocodone, when you're pregnant, you switch over to KRATOM, believing that you're making a healthy choice for your baby. And then you've got a newborn baby that goes into full-blown withdrawal. I cannot imagine that nightmare. I just can't imagine it. So we don't want these babies to go into cold turkey. It is deadly. We don't want that. If you're using KRATOM and you're pregnant, you must tell your doctor. You must today. And then you've got to start using smaller doses every day. All right. Okay. So, this story was just one that happened in Houston. And I know that there's a lot of people that say things like, oh, the KRATOM can't cross the blood-brain barrier. It won't go through the placenta. Yes, it will. Okay. I don't know how to say that any clearer. It absolutely crosses the placenta. It does go into the baby's body. They do get high from it, and they will experience opiate withdrawal. Okay. I mean, I sound pretty sure, don't I? Okay. And look, addiction, these babies that are born addicted to opiates, they have so many types of problems. They have a hard time latching on to feed. Look at old Sally here. Sally, you're a winner. You're winning at life, aren't you, Sally? You're winning at life. Yeah, and Anderson Gustafson, I am absolutely 100% honest and factual. They are using Suboxone to get people off of KRATOM. It's real, okay? And I do think with the help of Hound Lover, I think we've been really, really clear that there are some of these products that are not enhanced, but you have to be very careful. And they don't, because it's not regulated, it's not giving you dosing or telling you how much you're getting or anything like that. But if it says concentrated or it says the highest dose of KRATOM, those are all code words that tell you that they have capitalized on the 7-OH. The 7-OH is the intoxicant. Well, there's another one too, but it doesn't come in the high forms that the 7-OH does. In fact, I think, am I wrong about this? Aren't there products that they're marketing as 7-OH? They're not calling it KRATOM products. 708. Yeah, right here. Here's one called Perks. You think that could be for Percocet? 7 Stacks. That's another one that's being marketed as 7OH. It's not being marketed as KRATOM. The natural KRATOM, it's got 7OH is that she would literally sit there night after night after night and watch a pregnant woman on the nod, and not get upset. That's all perfectly normal and natural. But she will come in here and say, oh, you must really be hurting for views. How many views do you think this is going to get? Nobody likes KRATOM. Nobody cares about KRATOM. Believe it or not, I'm rather hoping that this might prompt some people to go to their doctor and tell the truth so that the baby is safe. So you may want to give that some thought, Sally. Little Miss Enabler of the Year. Okay, I'm done with Sally. Okay. Look, guys, I got to go. I think I got all the information that I wanted to put out there. I think I said it. Sally, this is an opinion channel, and we are allowed to have our opinions. That's my friend that said that, Sally. You better listen to her because she's wise. She's smarter than you. All right? Okay. Sorry I got triggered, you guys. You know, when there's a baby in the mix that's being hurt, you bet I'm going to fight. You bet it's going to happen. Fight like hell for a living.
Welcome to the circus, the true crime YouTube scene, where drama's the star and the facts aren't so clean. She's on her channel, she's screaming with flair. J Duck's poor Nana, her address is bare. The drama volcano, it's ready to blow. Subs grab their popcorn for the Krama show. It's Krama's true crime circus. Round and round we go. Not much truth, just trauma, stealing all the show. Narcissism, borderline, maybe psychopathy, fueling all the chaos in this YouTube spree. The ladies are screeching, they're hurling those names. Snake, liar, fraud. It's their favorite game. No problems defined, no solution in sight. Just a merry-go-round of emotional fights. Subs egg it on, they're loving the mess. Trauma bonding nightly in this hot circus press. It's Krama's true crime circus. Round and round we go. Not much truth, just trauma, stealing all the show. Narcissism, borderline, maybe psychopathy, fueling all the chaos in this YouTube spree. It's a borderline's dream, this emotional ride. No facts, just feelings with nowhere to hide. They gather each night for their drama parade. Significance found in the mess that they've made. So tune in tomorrow, the circus won't stop. Krama's true crime keeps the drama on top. With insults and screams, it's a wild, wild scene. Krama's true crime circus, fighting to be YouTube's drama queen.